Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and man, it is so good to be here for the final 5 chapters of My Hero Academia. I hope you all are doing well. Guys, I just feel so good about the way this is all going down. So many times, well, there's a few people in the comments I'm sure can say that I've been saying chapter 430 is most likely where it's going to be ending. And the reason I'm so happy is not because Hero Academia is ending. Like, that was always going to happen. I'm happy because it justifies how terrible Izuku vs. All For One is. Izuku vs. All For One was terrible because the manga was ending within 10 chapters. I am so happy. Because otherwise, I would have had to think that Horikoshi lost the plot. But no, everything makes sense. The guy was just running out of time. I expected this. Everyone expected this, I think, to some degree, because this is what happens with these kind of things. And for those that don't know, like, Horikoshi doesn't have that much power once a date has been finalized. I'm sure that there was a lot of back and forth, but like, the thing with Shonen Jump, its publication line, because there has to be someone to replace Horikoshi, that up and comer, or maybe it's a veteran, they have to have their series. They're probably working on their series right now, making sure that the first chapter is good to go, right? Or they're like in negotiations, and or like even maybe the decision-making process to pick out which one exactly is taking up Hero Academia's spot, right? There's a lot of, like, because of the administrative side, that's the thing that once that date is set, it pretty much causes the situation. It's always really interesting to like read about the authors, and even when they're doing their epilogues, that they got bonus epilogue chapters for their volume release, or like some extra special publication in Jump Giga. They're always talking about, oh, I ran out of pages, that's why I couldn't show Soma and Arena getting married, if you're looking at Shokugeki no Soma. These guys, like 100%, these guys can't control or they have no idea how much pages they're going to be using up. Horikoshi for sure does not know how long his stuff is going to take. So for a man who his history has been like colored by the fact that he doesn't know how long it's going to take him to finish something, it makes 100% sense to me that he ran out of time. And that is really what we're seeing here. So now the reviews do take a little bit of a different flavor, because now we're going to be evaluating, well, these are the epilogue chapters. Horikoshi is going to be putting everything that he thinks is important into the epilogue chapters. So this is going to be really cool, because you're going to get to see what he prioritizes on, and you're going to see the little tricks he does to like make sure he can shove every little thing that he can remember in there. One thing that I find interesting about the Todoroki family final is that I do agree that a lot of what Endeavor says is a reaffirmation, but that's largely because Endeavor's story is done. There's nothing new. There's no ground being broken. That's why you get a lot of reaffirmations, reiterations of what he has said before. He's just making sure that everyone understands this is Endeavor's position from now till the end of time. So before we get into the Endeavor stuff, because those are like the most important things, let's like also appreciate the other characters who most likely aren't going to have anything else coming for them. Camera glitched. Had to like switch over real quick. Oh well, what can you do? Anyway, very quickly, what Horikoshi focuses on here, we find out that the sidekicks are in fact still alive. Way to go. Awesome. They are good to go. And I do think that for the Endeavor side, I think this is nice that they are still supportive along with Hawks. Okay, and then we have Nagant. A kind of sad thing that Nagant went back to Tartarus. It's interesting how much more wounded she seems to be. One of the things that I'm very sad about is that we never find out how exactly the self-destruct mechanism worked for Nagant. I wish we could have found out how exactly that worked. But, oh well, what can you do? And then we have Gentle. Now, one thing that when I saw the Gentle thing, I think this is cute. I think this is awesome. I think Gentle deserves it. But like, I think back to Aoyama, and I'm thinking, Aoyama needs to go to a therapist. Why are you guys letting this traumatized, victimized person make his own compromised choices? Like, are his parents still in jail? Probably. Like, why are you just letting him walk? I hope he has support. I hope in the background of this story, Aoyama has some kind of support system, because I think this is insane. Anyway, this is really good. So like, as you can see, this chapter kind of focuses on the people who are around in the Tartarus area. Now, of course, with Hawks, we know what position he's going to be having in the new society. I think it's interesting that he's carrying a sword around, and I think that's an indicator that his quirk did not return to him, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. Couldn't get the perfect ending on that one, I guess. But hey, we have Hawks here. And then the chapter ends with Spinner. So the thing that I want to point out here is that there seems to be a structure, because in one of the previous chapters you had a panel where it showed Shoto, it showed a bunch of scales, which might be Spinner's scale, and then it showed Ochako. So that might be the quick template of what exactly we're going to be doing in the epilogue chapters. We're going to cover Shoto, we're going to cover Spinner, and we're going to cover Ochako Toga, and then whatever the final chapters are, probably some message about like we're going to be saving villains instead of just taking them down. We're going to try and understand them, but unless they're muscular. If they're just muscular, then he goes to jail. Like there's nothing you can do to help him. Okay, we get it. The nuances of Hero Academia. So okay, we got it. We got an idea of a structure. We got to see some character endings. Now let's get back to the meat of the situation, which is Endeavor. So overall, with the Endeavor thing, when it comes to the epilogue, like, let's really talk about this from an epilogue perspective, and this really only impacts you if you are going to be like trying to devise your own epilogue, if you're like writing fan fiction or like fiction. I was going to say actual fiction. I guess that's okay to say. But it's pretty much going to be that kind of conversation. The big thing here when you look at the epilogue that you can like kind of dig into is the style of epilogue. So this epilogue is happening immediately after the big situation. So, and when I say immediately after, because I know some people are going to be way too like pedantic about that, I mean within 1 year of the situation, and it's a fallout. It's happening in real time. If you look at epilogues, sometimes they are overviews. They quickly explain what this person did for the rest of their life. This is not that. This one is just you're finding out what's happening within like 3 months of the situation. So there are plus sides and cons to that. This isn't really about good or bad. This is really more about what are the benefits of doing it this way instead of doing an overarching, like very far out kind of epilogue. So when it's actually really interesting when it comes to the Endeavor one, I actually believe if it was me, I would have tried to figure out how to do this over a long period of time. Mind you, the final chapter of Hero Academia might have a flash forward so that you see a lot of this, but right now, taking this chapter by itself, I would have said that this segment in particular should have been an overview segment and not directly in the moment. If you do it that way for Horikoshi, you would have avoided reiterating a lot of the same things to Dabi. Although again, reiteration is powerful because a lot of people forget things, so like I understand the fear here with Horikoshi's side. But yeah, with this kind of thing, because we know so much already, because it's just like going through the motions, and because epilogues like are largely about closing things, they're not very exciting unless you really like closure. I would have done something like, you know, for the next 2 years, Endeavor visited Dabi every single day, even though Dabi said, or even though people only thought Dabi would live for 6 months, he lasted 2 years. I like that kind of approach in that like hypothetical, because it suggests, well, one, it lives up to the fact that Dabi just doesn't die. This man doesn't die. And it would have said that Dabi might have been kept alive just by Endeavor being there every day. That would have been a very nice message to have. We might still get it later on, but it would have been a very powerful message to kind of have about Dabi and Endeavor. And for some people, because like some people can't believe what they read in fiction, for some people it would have like cemented it further that Endeavor was legitimately a changed man, even though that's, you know, some people like need that extra reaffirmation, whatever. That's what I would have said on that one, just because the impact, you know, seeing it, like getting the fact that Endeavor lasted that long going to see Dabi and all that, it's a good feel. Now the problem here is that I think what limits Horikoshi from doing that is that the rest of the epilogue is happening in real time. So that's why, like I say, that you might get it in the final chapter, because it's just an issue of the flow. The cons to doing that far out approach, when you look at the macro here, is just the rest of the epilogue doesn't work that way, and there's probably other parts of the epilogue that really need to happen in real time within 6 months of the fall, to like, you know, characterize the fallout of the situation. So again, it's one of those kind of like little logistical challenges with the limited amount of time that Horikoshi has to actually think things through. I can see why we ultimately have to make this compromise here. This would be really interesting to know if he had considered doing an overview style epilogue. Anyway, with regards to Dabi's fate here, man, the guy's still alive. Like, whatever happens, happens. One thing I think is like very clear is that the villains got shit on so hard in this final arc. It's like Horikoshi looked at this, saw that people liked the villains, and thought, okay, if I need to kill someone, it's gonna be the villains. And he's like, let's do it. No hero's gonna die. No important hero's gonna die. It's just gonna be all the villains. Man, like, if there was ever a time to become a supporter of hero education, it's seeing how many heroes these people had just sitting around doing nothing. A lot of those heroes saw no action because they were just there for emergencies, and only one of those pods was really imperiled, but every other pod totally fine. These people, the hero education system is so ridiculously good that these guys could afford to just sit around because everyone else could handle the situation. It's just wild to me, man. Like, every time they talk about like the heroes were, they like, Horikoshi wants to make it look like the heroes were in a tough position, but no. When you have a robotic utopia, you are not in a bad position. Like, the biggest scam in Hero Academia is making you think that the heroes are gonna lose this. Oh, bud. What a ridiculous time, bro. Anyway, we come back to the Endeavor part. I find Natsu's moment here with Endeavor to be hilarious. But before I get into that, overall, the Natsu part is one of those parts that actually doesn't work in overview. This kind of part, because it's a lot of new information, it's more important that you say this directly to Endeavor's face. So it's really interesting. Like, the Dobby part is one that does better with the overview. This part does better just being in the moment. Because these are really raw emotions. It's really good to get it right here, right now. It's always about like the pros and cons of the situation. In this case, the consistency probably for the next few chapters is what ultimately influences the Dobby Endeavor talk to be the way it is. In terms of the content of the talk for Natsu, you know, like this is a trauma victim making their stand in the ground. They're talking about what they're going to do moving on. I think it's lovely that Natsu's going to get married to his girlfriend. I think that's all good. Natsu gives that little victory to Endeavor, thinking that he's really cool right now. This is the first time he's ever thought Endeavor is cool. I think this is good. Overall, I have particular feelings about this because like I worked with at-risk youth, so I have certain opinions about certain types of parents. But overall with Natsu, like one of the things that I see, and I'll speak about it in terms of Hero Academia, is one of the initial issues that I'm going to be seeing here is specifically if Natsu has kids. I want to know exactly what he's going to do with those kids when they start asking about their superhero grandfather, because it wouldn't be strange to have Natsu go into a slightly better version or a slightly tamer version of the Shigaraki family or Tenko's dad, specifically the way that he doesn't want to talk about his mother Nana. So with him, like, you have to be a bit careful going into his future. And if we do like the final chapter and it's a far zoom out of these characters, I would be interested to see if he ultimately had to go back on that, because like just looking at it, you know, if you're a child and you hear about this great guy on the TV, but your dad never wants to talk about him, your dad doesn't want to like take him, as he says, I won't introduce you to her. Like, the way he's talking about this here makes it sound like he's cutting them out more or less. And just in that case, you know, you're pretty much setting up a plot line of like, why didn't dad let me meet my grandpa, you know? And this is one of those really complex situations where like your dad suffered a lot by the hands of this man, and this man might be different now, but like, you know, trauma isn't easily forgotten. It's one of those complex situations you have to be really careful to not create resentment in the child, especially when the child's well off. Like, because honestly, like, Natsu is probably going to continue getting financial benefits from his dad. That's just probably how that's going to work. That's almost always how it works with affluent families. The other situation is that with Natsu in particular, what's he going to do? He can't really introduce his... I'd be very interested if he would ever try introducing his girlfriend to his mother's side of the family, because I have a feeling that genetic purist side of the family, I have a feeling that side of family might not actually like mutant shapes, just because of like the way they've been written so far with like how they did their genetics. I'd be very careful with that. So his future, like on a social level, I find it very interesting. I think this is one of those things that you have to be very careful, because you could just end up in a modified version of the Shigaraki family situation, mind you, with less death. It's just one of those tense situations. And like, you know, what is the most mature thing is to like let kids of age make decisions for themselves. I think that's probably the mature thing to do, especially In fiction, it's a little bit different because you have a better promise that this person is a good person and Endeavor won't go crazy again. Like, you have that promise here. In real life, it's a little bit harder to get that promise. So, like, you know, in real life, people are a little bit more, they're a little bit happier to cut people out of their lives. But in idealized fiction, like, you can probably, it would be interesting. Now, I rambled on about this one a lot because there's just not much else to say about the chapter. This is the most interesting stuff. This is what Horikoshi focused on. This is what he wanted to talk about. And I think for Natsu, this is a really great ending. Shoto is just pretty much saying, bros, I'm just going to keep doing me. And that's Shoto. Shoto doesn't really care. Shoto doesn't really have an emotional arc here. The one that has the emotional arc are Endeavor and Natsu. It's actually kind of hilarious. Shoto is just chill. He's stable. He's the most stable part of his family. That's why he gets to be the hero, is because he's stable. Yeah, so Shoto's big resolution in the final chapter is that he and his brother have similar tastes. Who would have thought it? I hope that for the fans, they are able to be honest about this and be like, this chapter is more for the Todoroki family as the chapter implies. This chapter is more about Dabi, Endeavor, and Natsu when it comes to those really good emotional resolutions, with a side of former villains and Hawks, because he's involved in the Endeavor plotline. I think that was actually a really good way of tying Hawks in there. I think because they're probably at a prison right now, so thematically, like, Horikoshi is so smart. Thematically, that made sense. You're at the prison, let's cover everyone that's in this area. Next, we're going to Central Hospital. Let's cover everyone in Central Hospital. Let's see if the theory holds up on that one. Yeah, man, like, if there's one thing I love about Hero Academia, it's that even in moments like this, you can see technical brilliance in how Horikoshi thinks about things. And sincerely, I really hope that Horikoshi comes back and writes series. I don't need him to draw. I know people really like his art style, but like, whatever. Anyone can copy an art style. I think Horikoshi, I would love to continue seeing his really meticulously thought out works. I don't know if he can do it without the superhero skin on it, but yeah, even here you can see the literary brilliance on it. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Let me know what your favorite part was. Let me know if you think I missed something that really probably deserves more attention. I'm always up for that. I just don't see, like, a lot of these other characters are pretty dead end, right? Like, Nagant only showed up in the final act. Gentle is gentle. It's just, this is everything you needed, right? Like, come on. That was all you ever needed. But yeah, let me know what you thought down below, and till next time, I hope you have an oh, you know what I want to see? I want to see Garaki crying. I want to see him bawling his eyes out knowing that All For One's dead. Oh, that would be so good. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. 4 more chapters of Hero Academia.